Ladies and gentlemen, the bells of Christ Church. Well, we squeezed ourselves in up here, so I have to get in and out. It'll take me a second each time, but what a lovely, lovely place to ring. What a friendly looking audience, and what good food you fed us. Good evening and welcome to the 135th full-length concert of the Bells of Christ Church. I am Mark Williams, the director and founder of the group. I believe that what you will hear and see this evening will be an ear-opening experience to the world of music making through handbells. The Bell Choir of Christ Church Anglican, located in the historic district of Savannah, Georgia, was founded some 23 years ago with the goal of providing an opportunity, of musical opportunity, for the youth and the young at heart of our church. We began with 6 ringers and 3 octaves of bells, and now ring with 12 ringers and 14 octaves of bells and chimes and carillon bells. You know, I just love Christmas. What a warm and hopeful time of the year it is. It honors the birth of the Christ child. Songs like "Joy to the World" and jingle bells ring through the air. It's a magical time for children and those that are childlike at heart. You know, most people don't know it, but Jingle Bells was actually written at a church in Savannah on a pipe organ that was once owned by our church. When we got a larger organ, that one was donated to another church, and then wound up in Tallahassee, owned by the university there, and it's called the Jingle Bell organ.
Mr. Mark?
Janelle?
I think you've got the Christmas script.
The Christmas script?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. COVID. Oh, this is embarrassing. Excuse me a second. Oh, here it is. Savannah has a long and vibrant history in its past with pirates and pirating. Savannah is a major port city with the Savannah River coming right through the downtown. Scores of legendary pirates have visited the city, including Blackbeard himself.
Mr. Mark, I think you have the Halloween script.
The Halloween script. You'd think by the 11th day of tour, I would have figured this out. Excuse me, most embarrassing. Here it is. Bell Choir Script Summer Tour 2022. I think we're there. As we ring for you this evening, our goal is not merely performance. This is it. We hope to expand your experience of what handbells can offer as instruments of musical expression, to share a bit about the amazing history of handbells, and even possibly to touch your hearts all to the glory of God. And now a beautiful arrangement of the English folk tune, Greensleeves. Handbells find their origins in merry old England. In bell towers strewn throughout Great Britain, bells are rung in numerical sequences called changes. This sequential ringing of bells, called change ringing, has a long tradition and is always rung by memory. With 12 bells, a change ringing team can ring over 5 million sequences without repeating a one of them. Some changes or peals last for hours, and yes, they require practice. So in order for the bell ringers to not to have to practice in the cold, damp bell towers in England, small bells were fashioned on handles, much like the ones you see before you tonight. This so that change ringing teams across England could practice in the warmth of the indoors or their local pub. But even these smaller handbells proved to be annoying to the locals after hours of clinging and clanging in their rehearsal time. So practice bells were eventually fashioned out of wood with no clappers in them at all. And so they were silent. And you guessed it, they were called dumbbells. Interestingly, these dumbbells were found to build up the muscles and the shoulder arms in the ringers, and so they found their way into gymnasiums. And out in the narthex at the intermission, after the concert tonight, you'll find there's a bell museum out there with all sorts of bell accoutrements that you can pick up and touch and see and read about. And now for a lively arrangement based on the hymn tune Restoration, known as I Will Arise and Go to Jesus. I will arise and go to Jesus, like you've never heard it before. As you can tell, I tend to play through and listen to a lot of handbell repertoire to come up with pieces that are really exceptional, because they have to ring those pieces the entire school year and then take them on a 14-day tour, and some of them will be repeated in the future. So what you're hearing is some really exceptional bell repertoire by a really exceptional ensemble, and I am absolutely busting my buttons proud of how they have pulled this off post-COVID after having basically a 3-year break and having 2 tours canceled. They came back together, and here they are. So God is good. No doubt ringing handbells as a musical ensemble is an art, as you can hear and see, but it is also a team sport. You can see each ringer has their own assigned bells that are laid out on the tables in front of them, just as a piano keyboard is laid out. Black and white notes, black and white handles on the bells. However, with a piano, generally one person is responsible for making music out of the little printed black blobs presented before them on the page of music. But with a handbell choir, each ringer is assigned about 4 notes out of the 72 available. So the experience is like having 12 people play a single piece of piano as a 12-man team. Crazy, you might ask, you might say. In all this, each ringer also has to rely on the others to come in on time, in tempo, and with the right amount of dynamic force so that one bell doesn't stick out above another. It's a musical art, but it's also a team sport. Now, for a bit of Christmas in June, here is Joy. Nothing but the best. She's our little Christmas belle. I grew up in Houston and South Texas, and it's just as hot and humid there as it is here. But I was in Alabama last week. My father's father was from Alabama, and I was offered at breakfast pancakes or grits. I didn't know that grits had 3 vowels in it. But it is absolutely fascinating to only be a few hundred miles away from home and to hear so many variations of accents, so many colors. It's actually quite beautiful. My wife absolutely loves it. When she's in Tennessee, she hears one. She's in North Carolina, she hears another. She's in South Carolina, oh my God. But here we are in Georgia. I have a personal affinity for Japanese gardens. I find them beautiful to see, fun to explore, and tranquil in their careful design. When I was about 12 years old, the World's Fair occurred in Seattle, Washington. I had no idea I'd wind up going to graduate school there and living there many years later for quite a while. In that time, my parents took me to a Japanese garden, and I grew with a great affinity for them and seek them out. Envision with me taking a quiet early morning walk through one of these magical gardens. And on your walk, the waking dawn is just beginning. The birds are coming alive in the new day. The large fish in the pond are beginning to stir. The low morning's dew begins to lose its grip on the flowers and trees. As you walk, you take in the peace of God and his grand design, his abundant nature. The sunlight grows a bit brighter. The last morning stars begin to disappear from sight. Finally, the sun breaks through the trees and streams of light and the warmth of the day fall upon your face. Enjoy this arrangement of peaceful waters. I am a student of the great choral artists Robert Shaw and Alice Parker. I've spent many hours with Alice Parker at her home in Holly, Massachusetts. Alice was the major composer for the Robert Shaw Chorale. One of the things that she taught me while studying with her as a grad student was about the circle of music. And this is something that I have lessons I teach them before each concert, and this is the third and last lesson. The last lesson. Paint on, paint off. And that lesson is that the composer hears something in his or her head and then puts it on paper and trusts that then a conductor will take that and interpret it somewhere near what they had in their mind when they put it on paper. They maybe have been passed for many hundreds of years. They may still be alive, you never know. But the composer has these black blobs on the page and little artistic drawings for we conductors to then try to apply our craft to. We then give that over to the performers who eventually master that piece of music and they add even more to it. Then they offer it in a public setting. Sometimes with the composer present, sometimes not. It's a great treat to be the composer and get to hear what other people have done to your work. Sometimes very nice things, far more than you ever imagined. But the point is, then the audience hears it and they give back a spirit because every one of you has a soul. Every one of you is created in God's image. You give back a spirit in the room that goes back into the room and back into the performers. And they take that back with them and their impression of what pleased you or what communicated with you, something about God and his glory, revealing it through this music. That just happened for us. I saw it on every face up there that they knew they were touching some of you in the room. So thank you for being part of the circle in these last two concerts we put on our tour as we get it to the point that we really own the music and can give it to you as a gift. It means a lot to us to have you here. We're now going to spend a minute talking about bell techniques. Are there any bell ringers in the room? Excellent. Oh, very good. Very good. You almost equal that in, where were we? Chattanooga, where 50% of the audience raised their hands. I was like, oh my goodness, they must have quite a guild of English ringers in Chattanooga. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking. This is Sarah Williams. Sarah is about to be a senior in high school. She's a fourth-year bell ringer, and she's going to demonstrate for us all the different techniques that we use to make the sounds that you hear. This is standard 101 legato bell ringing. The hand comes out, flicks at the end, and goes back to the shoulder to damp the bell. One more time. Perfect form. Yes, straight eights. They don't do that anymore, do they? All right, and then let's do a shake. And what's called a martellato. One more time. Or a mart lift. Then there's a thumb damp. Put your thumb against the bell. And then there is a suspended mallet. There's a mallet on the table. The highest bell, way up high so they can see that. The lowest bell down here with, I believe, Jonathan. Show them, Jonathan, how much that bell doesn't weigh. That bell is made out of cast aluminum. If that bell were made out of bronze like the other bells, it would be equal to 3 bowling balls. And he would have rotator cuff surgery by age 30. And so I'm not joking. And so we got bronze bells down there. We also ring with what are called chimes. This is the highest chime up in the air so they can see them. And the low chime down there. Anybody got it? There you go. Chimes were invented by the Malmark company as choir chimes for middle school students and elementary school students because they were virtually indestructible. And then we got a hold of them, and so we'll go with anything. We have some that are 8 feet tall that come in a big rack, and they add a real neat low end. But we need one more ringer to get to take those on tour with us. All right. We're now going to ring for you our challenge piece for the semester. This is called Laudation. Something will happen. We're now going to visit our traveling chiropractor and masseuse. We will be back in about 10 minutes. In the narthex, you will find the Bell Museum, as well as many of we have a dozen CDs and DVDs that Christ Church has produced over the years. Two in particular are of this handbell choir and many of the pieces you've heard us ring. And one of them is called Advent Festival of Lessons and Carols. It is with orchestra, and it is some of the finest things that we have sung in our annual Lessons and Carols. It's in its fourth pressing on Amazon. If that interests you at all, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Thank you so much. The best is yet to come. Time to take the roast out of the oven. Time to take the roast out of the oven. A bell poem, Enslaved, by Tamara Rates. When I first put my hand upon a bell, I didn't know my life would change as well. So innocent they lay, reflecting the light, not one so much hinting at the coming plight of hopeless addicts permanently bound, indentured to a lifetime filled with bell sound. How can these golden beauties be so fell, and yet their fascinating habits tell? A tale of bell entrapment at first sight for ear and eye and pure delight. Of mental pleasures nowhere to be found, but deep within a score in music we are drowned. A wall divides us from what was and what is and what can be, for each and every note is changing me. This is why you keep two batons, because one of them went away. Here we go. Sea shanties were the spirituals for sailors when they sailed across the vast oceans. They were work songs sung as the various duties aboard sailing ships were carried out. Some were about life and some about death, but most all sea shanties had a certain hope and joviality to their tunes to help keep the sailors' spirits up while they worked manual labor aboard ship. Clearly, there is a more serious side to life at sea, the loss of those brave souls who would say, "Oh God, thy sea is so great, and my boat so very, very small." And for those who have been led time and time again to sing this most powerful hymn, "Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm doth calm the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee for those in peril on the sea." This is You Below by Matthew Prynne.
Arr.
Sometimes you pick up a piece of music and have no idea what story is unlocked in it. The composer never intended that to be a pirate song, but I heard it as a pirate song. We've now entered that most exciting time of the entire evening called question and answer time. The question is, can you beat Chattanooga and Tallahassee as the church with the best questions? Anything but my routing number and my checking account number, and I'll answer your question about the bell choir. Yes, ma'am. How many what? These are Malmark bells. There are 5 octaves of bells, 6 octaves of chimes, and 4 octaves of carillon bells. You heard the carillon bells. Does anybody have one around, Robbie? A carillon bell? On joy. Joy to the world. You heard the statement, the melody. Those are rung in carillons around the world, and they don't play so well with handbells because handbells are melody bells and harmonic bells. Chimes are gong bells. They have a lot more harmonics. Yeah. Hi. Yes, ma'am.
So many of your members have been moving back and forth the whole time. Does everybody play multiple bells? I mean, not just 2 or 3, but...
Yes. When I was in middle school, I played in a bell choir, and I took middle C and D, C sharp and D sharp, because I was taking piano and I knew where middle C was. And so I could read it on the staff, etc. In high school, that worked pretty well. In college, there was an upperclassman who already had middle C and D, had it for 2 years and wasn't giving it up. I'd never rung the high bells where they wanted me to ring, and I'd certainly never done the low bells. And so I was out. The point is, I want to equip these saints for the work of ministry so that when they come to your church or another church, college, or university, they can say, any part you want me to ring, I'll ring it gladly. Thank you. Thank you. So the downfall of many bell choirs, and I don't mean to push any buttons here at all, it's just the truth, is that when Miss Susie joined the bell choir 20 years ago, and Miss Susie teaches piano and is the local elementary school director of music, she can read most anything on the page. And so she's given a part, and all of a sudden that part for the assigned piece is really simple, and she's really bored. However, James, who joined the bell choir last year as a high school student, who kind of plays the saxophone sometimes in his band and doesn't read very well, now has a really complicated part. What happens to that bell choir? Susie is bored, and James, I say James or David, whoever that was, is just frustrated as heck, as is the rest of the bell choir. So I go through the music and write out, this part is easy, this one's medium difficult, this one's difficult, and I assign the experienced bell ringers to the difficult ones and the easy ones, and therefore everybody is happy. So if you're in a bell choir or a bell director, you might recommend trying this on a piece, because you'll find not only will they really enjoy ringing different parts, but also they will be matched to the skill level on the page. Any other questions? I'll keep them shorter. 8th grade through college, and then a couple of adults. One's my wife, one's my associate at the church. I have a half-time associate. And one is a lady who said, can I please ring bells? And she plays first violin in our orchestra, so I said, okay. Yes, ma'am.
How do you clean the big bells?
How do you clean the big bells? Elias?
Windex.
Windex. There's a hole in this cake, this bundt cake, there's a hole. Windex. If you haven't seen the movie, don't worry about it. Windex.
What is this instrument up here?
Synthesizer. It's a synthesizer. It's connected to a laptop computer that allows us to do things like windstorms or when we're at sea, or birds and streams, a flute, because we don't have a flutist with us on this tour. If I have a live instrumentalist, I use them. If not, I use a dead one. Yes, ma'am.
Is that special kind of table to get the resonance?
The table? The tables are covered in 4 inches of dense foam and then corduroy with the waning, is that what it's called? What's it called? The fabric direction is called
The whale.
the whale. I knew it was a W word, going this direction so that the bells won't roll. They hit a stripe in the corduroy and they don't roll. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so also the bells are damped. When you set them down, they damp. They no longer sound. Yes, ma'am.
What company produces these bells?
These bells, Malmark. There are 3 major bell manufacturers in the world for handbells. One is Malmark, one is Schulmerich, and the third is Whitechapel. Whitechapel has kind of fallen out of favor because it's an older kind of design. Yeah. Anyone else? Excellent. Y'all win. Those are the best questions we've had. There we go. These 2 gentlemen behind me are Elias and Jonathan Clements. They are brothers, and they asked if they could ring this year's duet. This is entitled Peace. Well, thank you all for coming out this evening in the heat and being such a fine and supportive audience. You can see the other churches where we have rung on this tour, where we will be Saturday afternoon. If you know anyone in Savannah, let them know about our home concert tour. Again, CDs and DVDs of many of tonight's pieces are available in the narthex. Thank you again for being here tonight, for this church's fine hosting of us, for the good food, for Tom and your loving help. We're now going to ring the Celtic piece, Lore of the Loom. You'll be sorry. Between these last three pieces that you heard, the complete bell setup changes, meaning binders move, bells move, bell ringers move, and so we just got to be patient. They practice every Monday night from 6 to 7:30, no matter what, other than a hurricane. And they each know that when they're not there, that there's nobody covering their part. So it's a team sport. Very, very dedicated group. So we're now to the third generation of youth in this group. I have now married, meaning I have played their wedding, of several members of the group. Some of them actually met in the group. One of them, one that just got married that we rang for their wedding 2 weeks ago, met in this group. And now some of them are having their own children. So they'll someday be in the bell choir. I may not be directing it, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so yes, many of them are siblings. Can you raise your hand if you have someone in the group who you are related to? So you met Elias and Jonathan. Y'all can raise your hands. Duets, they ring the duet. There are the Nichols, 1, 2, 3. There are the Beaumonts, 1, 2. There's me and my wife. And have I left anybody else out? And everybody else is on their own, meaning, right. We got sisters here. But they're sisters in Christ, all right? Over the years, handbells and handbell choirs have, in some people's minds, become synonymous with merely Christmas. I've tried to change that. In this light, handbell choirs are frequently offered the invitation to share their unique talents at banks and shopping malls and large department stores and the like. You know, the quiet, ideal venues where listeners can provide their undivided attention. In honor of this unique American holiday tradition with bells, we close tonight with A Christmas Portrait at the Shopping Mall.
Hello, shoppers. The Santa photo booth closes in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Thank you.